Officiating this afternoon. As a last and gentle reminder, we invite everybody to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off. We are honored and privileged to have representation from the United States Armed Forces here to honor Manny's service to our great country. This time I ask those of you in the first row to please rise as the rabbi approaches to perform the ancient ceremony of Kriya. Those of you in the first row, please rise.
We're joined together this afternoon to remember Manny, to join our hearts together with his family to bring comfort and strength to all those people assembled here, to his wife Fern, his children Michael, Paul, and Jill, and their spouses Rosabelle, Sarah, and Tim, and to his grandchildren Adam, Joshua, Tara, Ryan, Courtney, Chase, Carolyn, Kevin, Jason, and Bradley. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. And so we begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, linking Manny's life to the millennia-old tradition of the people Israel and God's eternity. Death will not come, it says. Death will not come, and we cannot enter into judgment with it. Our question, why, will always go unanswered. But this does not mean we are helpless in the face of death. We can, and we do, rob death of victory by living our lives, so that when death comes, it takes from us a world, one corner of which is a little bit better because we were there. We join together in the reading of the 23rd Psalm in your handout. The Lord is my shepherd. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In remembering Manny, the people who knew him best are going to share their stories of him. So I want to start by inviting up his children, Mike, Paul, and Jill, to speak.
Good afternoon. Shakespeare said, "Some men are born into greatness, some men achieve greatness, and others have greatness thrust upon them." For our dad, it was all three. They really don't make him like Manny Steinfeld anymore. A true legend, a giant among men, he was part of the greatest generation, never to be replicated. His inspiring story needs to be told, and I am honored to tell it. In the past few days, we have received numerous letters and emails from all over the globe, but this one stood out. The author asked me to read it to the mourners. Dear Fern, dear Jill, and all the others known and unknown. No news is good news was one of Manny's slogans, and the news that I received on Sunday noon was really no good news. For those who do not know me, my name is Helmut Heinmüller, and I am the founder of the website of the little town named Jasbach, where Manny was born 95 years ago. I live now, not far from where he grew up. I created the Jasbach homepage in 2001, and shortly thereafter I received an email. Hello, Jasbach. My name is Manfred, and I am a former Jasbacher. Greetings to you. I replied, and from that day on, Manny and I exchanged a number of emails, almost every day, sometimes more, sometimes less, but never more than 2 weeks without any communication. And then he mailed again one day and said, don't worry if you haven't heard from me, I'm on a business trip to China or somewhere else in the world. In the years, we developed a real close friendship. We talked about things one only tells to a very close friend. He knows things about me no one else knows, and I think I know some things about him that no one else knows. I learned about his life story and what happened in the past, and I also learned that Manny really still loved his hometown in Germany. Even though he had every reason to hate the Germans, he always said Jasbacher citizens were mostly good people. Later, then we started a few projects in Jasbach. First was a memorial plaque for the victims of the war, World War II, and then he built the Jasbach Youth Center in memory of his brother after he asked us, what can we do to bring this town into the 21st century? And when we said we needed a rec center with computers, Manny came through. Finally, Jasbach realized the Stolperstein project. That's when in homes that used to belong to Jews that were forced out of Germany or were, never were able to get out and died in the camps, Germany's, in their way of reconciliation, has put brass plaques in front of the homes where the Jews used to live as a way to remember and memorialize them. So when it came to his town in Jasbach, where there were 7 Jewish families when my dad was growing up, they put a stone in front of his house, and Helmut, the sender of the letter, was asked by my dad to read his words at the dedication. Every time he visited Jasbach with Fern or any other members of the family, it was a special event for us Jasbachers, and I was always happy to shake his hand. But those days are gone now, and they will not return. The world loses a great father, grandfather, husband, a great icon, really an esteemed citizen who cannot be honored enough, and last but not least, we all lost a good friend. I have to end now, and finally, I have one very important sentence. I am proud to be able to say Manny Steinfeld was my friend. Rest in peace, Manny. Helmut. And by the way, that wreath at the end is from his town in Jasbach. Okay, that's your turn now.
Oh, you changed the order.
No, that was it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Paul, your name.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today to honor and memorialize our father. In our tradition, we talk about Keter Shem Tov, the crown of a good name. It is to give tribute to people who make the world a better place, to honor the world as it should be. No one deserves this crown or award better than Manny Steinfeld. Tukan Olam, repair the world. That was our dad. Today we honor the man who made the world a better place for literally thousands of people. Our father, who lived the American dream, loved a room filled with family, friends, and business associates coming out to honor him. Our dad always believed that one should give back to society. His accolades are numerous, but here are some I know he'd want to share.
Manny was one of the original founders of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. Jill Weinberg, who is sitting here, reminded us that Manny had a vision for the museum long before it came to fruition, and since its inception has welcomed over 40 million visitors and over 100 heads of state. In 2014, he was their National Leadership Award recipient. Manny was also a recipient of the Horatio Alger Award for Distinguished Americans. The American Jewish Committee honored him with its Humanitarian Award, ditto for the Holocaust Foundation of Illinois. Dad was the Volunteer of the Year at the University of Tennessee and endowed the Fern and Manfred Steinfeld Chair in Judaic Studies. He received an honorary doctorate from Roosevelt University and also endowed their Fern and Manfred Steinfeld School of Hospitality.
The network of executive women in hospitality created the Manfred Steinfeld Humanitarian Award in his honor. This award, now called the Manny, is given by Hospitality Design magazine to the industry figure who has demonstrated extraordinary humanitarian spirit. Just this morning, the magazine posted a living tribute to our dad. As a trustee of the Art Institute, he was proud to endow 2 galleries. And we can't forget the hundreds of kids he helped put through college via various scholarships at the University of Tennessee, Brandeis, and the Illinois Institute of Technology. We receive letters of gratitude monthly from grateful students. More recently, he endowed the Fern and Manfred Steinfeld Trans-Aortic Valve Replacement Center at the Boca Raton Regional Hospital. There's so much more, but you'd be here all day and perhaps tomorrow if we went over all his achievements.
Our dad was a true American patriot. He loved the Jewish people in Israel, but he was first and foremost an American. Most of you know the story of him coming to Chicago penniless at age 14, sponsored by the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. An aunt who had come here earlier also sponsored him, and he slept on her couch while working 2 jobs and attending Hyde Park High School. He quickly learned English, even if it was learned playing craps in the back alleys with his newfound friends, Bill Stein, the late Bill Stein and the late Bill Dorff. Manny was drafted in the Army when he was of age and served his adopted country with distinction as a proud member of the 82nd Airborne, earning numerous medals of valor, and we have members of the 82nd here. After the war, he was a member of the first graduating class of Roosevelt University. He then went on to build an international furniture company, Shelby Williams Industries, that provided jobs for over 3,000 people with installations across the globe. I once asked my dad, "What keeps you up at night?" And he replied, "I want to make sure that all my employees have food on the table for their families."
Starting with a small investment but a huge work ethic, he found a niche, and Shelby Williams became the largest and most respected contract furniture company in the world, furnishing all the major hotel and restaurant chains and at one time 80% of Las Vegas. It was not unusual to see him flipping over chairs in even the most finest of restaurants and hotels to make sure the chair said manufactured by Shelby Williams. In the highly unlikely event that it wasn't, he made sure to introduce himself to management to ensure that he gets the next order. It could be embarrassing at times, dining in a fine establishment and having our dad turn over a chair, but then it became a thing, and everyone was doing it. He even created the International Society of World Chair Flippers, and with personalized business cards to pass out to anyone who was wondering why we were doing this. Dad was also the genius behind the Neocon trade show held annually at the Merchandise Mart. Manny demanded the best of himself and also of others. One of the former executives of Shelby Williams told the press, "Manny knew more about our potential than we understood. He saw me things I didn't know I could do, and he forced me to learn it. He was pulling me along, and he did that with a lot of other people." Another executive said he was absolutely the greatest entrepreneur of all time. His business acumen was second to none. He had unbelievable timing in business. He knew the right time to buy and the right time to sell. On a little side note, he had an early career accident and was blinded in one eye. And he would walk through the factory many times, see all the defects out there, and start getting a little angry and say, "I see more with one eye than you see with 2. Our dad used to say there exist limitless opportunities in every industry, but success requires intelligence, discernment, judgment, and not to just be better than your competitors, but to be better than yourself.
Dad had a deep love and unwavering support for Israel, the land where his brother Herbert Naphtali Steinfeld fled Germany for, only to be killed by the British fighting for the creation of a Jewish homeland. In his honor, our dad built the Naphtali Steinfeld Education Center on Ammunition Hill in Jerusalem for visitors to learn of Naphtali's heroics. I'm fortunate that 2 of my kids have seen that. Dad also created a scholarship in Naphtali's name at the Jewish United Fund of Metropolitan Chicago so that young people can travel to Israel. Speaking of the JUF, our dad served twice as their campaign chairman in 1987 and again 1997, and as the chairman of the Federation Board of Directors for 2 years. He was honored with the Julius Rosenwald Award in 2000. Dad's wartime heroics are well known to us, but here are a couple that deserve to be shared. As a proud member of the 82nd Airborne, he had 7 jumps, including Operation Market Garden, better known as the campaign in the book and movie A Bridge Too Far. He attended military intelligence school at Camp Ritchie, and with his German language skills became an expert on the German army. The story is featured prominently in the new book by Bruce Henderson, Sons and Soldiers, on sale at Amazon. With these skills, he also translated the unconditional surrender of the Germans to the 82nd Airborne on May 2nd, 1945, and there's a copy of the surrender document. Shortly after the war ended, Dad was stationed in Boisenberg, Germany, then under Allied command. While on duty and wearing his American Army uniform, a woman in tattered concentration camp clothing approached the Jewish-looking American soldier and asked if he spoke German, which of course he did. She then proceeded to identify a man in civilian clothing trying not to be noticed in the chaos that was post-war Germany. She identified him as the commandant of the Ravensbrück women's concentration camp where she had just been liberated. Our dad apprehended him and arrested him on the spot, and with his Ritchie boy skills and interrogation tactics, interrogated him in German and immediately turned him over to the military police. This man was ultimately convicted of crimes against humanity and was sentenced to death at the Nuremberg trials. Yep, our dad was not only a mensch, he was a war hero, but I like to think of him as a badass. Dad was also a liberator of the Wöbelin concentration camp near Ludwigslust, Germany. He was terrified he'd find his mother and sister amongst the dead and near dead. This was mostly a political prisoner death camp, and what he saw haunted and angered him. But what angered him the most was its close proximity to where the inhabitants went about their daily lives as if nothing evil were happening, just a stone's throw away. After liberating the camp under 82nd Airborne Commander General James Gavin, the local townspeople were forced to bury the dead in proper graves while the 82nd stood watch, 200 souls in all. Fast forward to the 1980s when our dad went back to Ludwigslust to film a documentary on his life. To his shock and dismay, the graves had all been destroyed and the wooden crosses and stars of David had all been dismantled and used for firewood for a particularly cold winter. A park lay atop the burial site with no mention of the 200 souls who lay below. Dad was outraged, and like all activists, he took action right then and there. He demanded a meeting with the mayor and city leaders and told them the story of the dead buried underneath the park. On the spot, he gave them a check to create a memorial and that he'd get it funded if they couldn't, and that he'd be back in a year or two to see to it that it had been done. He would also bring the press to make sure it was completed. True to his word, and with additional funding from the veterans of the 82nd Airborne and the American Commission for the Preservation of American Heritage Abroad, he returned not only with the German press, but with historians, politicians, and several of his grandchildren for the dedication of the Ludwigslust Memorial Cemetery with over 1,000 people in attendance, including survivors of the Wöbelin concentration camp. Mensch, war hero, activist. Your turn, Mike.
Manny was a true Renaissance man and incredibly progressive for his generation. As a boy in Josbach, his teacher saw his genius and often told his classmates that they were sharing a desk with the future finance minister of Germany. As stated in the letter Jill read earlier, my dad enjoyed going back to Josbach, and one family in particular, the Henkels, had been very good to our grandmother Paula and Aunt Irma, who were scheduled to leave Germany for England the day the war broke out and were never able to leave. This family took care of them before they were ultimately deported to the Stutthof concentration camp. Dad used to send them chairs, and he even employed one of their sons in his factory in Tennessee one summer to learn skills to take back to his business. A heartfelt letter was received yesterday by this young father who also vowed to keep Manny's memory alive in Josbach. And of course, Dad built a recreation center in Josbach in memory of his brother and provided several computers which Helmut wrote his email to Jill on. But the military and business were just one piece of our dad's story. He met the love of his life, Fern Goldman, at a wedding in 1948, and they were married the next year. Fern, a Northwestern University Medill School of Journalism graduate in the days when there were quotas for women and Jews, had a career as a newspaper reporter before they were married. After I was born, Dad was recalled to active duty during the Korean War, and we lived for a while at Fort Meade, Maryland. Paul was born in 1954, and Jill, well, we don't need to close that year.
1970?
Our parents were dedicated and devoted to each other, and they raised us in Skokie before moving to their apartment on Lakeshore Drive in 1975. Our house was always full of people, including Dad's business associates who were often entertained in our home. Dad loved to lavish gifts on Mom, and when they traveled, it was always in style. Dad had a keen eye for style and what was on trend at any given time, but he relished the fact that he still owned and often wore the same pair of shoes he bought in Hong Kong 40 years earlier. Our dad believed the most important gifts he could give his kids was an education, but that education is not limited to the classroom. The world was the teacher, and we needed to learn from it. How can we have a worldview if we haven't seen it? We recall our first European vacation in 1966. 8 countries in 14 days, or was it 12 days? It probably was 5 days knowing Dad, with the prerequisite 7 a.m. breakfast meeting. All we recall is that we saw a lot in a very short period of time just to give us a taste of what is out there. In 1979, Dad was invited by the leaders of communist China to assess their furniture industry and to help modernize it. Mom and Jill were lucky enough to tag along, and they went nuts seeing Mom's red hair.
They were touching it, remember?
At this point, we need to acknowledge our spouses, Tim, who Dad loved like another son, as well as Sarah and Roosevelt, his other daughters. And of course, his tireless caregivers from the past couple of years, Ralph and Kenny, and of course, his longtime friends, Al Gruen and Leonard Parker.
Want me to read it? Want me to go on? Want me to do it?
Could you please?
Yeah. Dad was extremely proud of all his grandkids, but his sadness at losing Danny was insurmountable. But true to who Manny Steinfeld was, he took his loss and created something that others can benefit from, including several parks and playgrounds in Danny's name, along with the Danny Kniff Leukemia Research Lab at Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem, saving lives with cutting-edge treatments. And I get emails from people really like a couple times every other month saying that we've been treated there and we're doing well. There's also the Danny Kniff grant at St. Jude's in Memphis and a grant at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center in Seattle. Recently, when Googling our dad, we also found a CNN segment on him, as well as documentaries on the Discovery Channel and PBS, and articles on the internet from the heyday of Shelby Williams in the most prestigious of business publications. Mensch, war hero, activist, business leader, philanthropist, devoted husband, loving pappy, and so much more. But to us, he was Dad. Manny led a life like none other. Through tragedy and triumph, our dad left an indelible mark on the planet and for all humanity. God bless you, Dad. You may have left the physical world, but your legacy will live on into eternity. We love you. And as he would want us to add, God bless Israel and God bless America.
I just wanted to say he was the greatest man I ever knew.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. It's an honor to invite up Manny's granddaughter, Courtney, to speak.
Everyone who knows me knows how much I love my pappy. Even in his case, when life was lived to the fullest and for 95 years, my heart still aches to lose him. Striving to make Pappy proud has always been a big part of who I am, which I hope to carry on by honoring his memory today and by being strong for him. Pappy lived a life to celebrate, and the impact he had as the patriarch of our family was palpable. I'm here to speak on behalf of his grandchildren, my brothers Chase and Kevin, my sister Caroline, and cousins Adam, Josh, Tara, Ryan, Bradley, and Jason. I asked my cousins to write me their fondest memories of time with Pappy. Here are a few highlights. Josh says, "The greatest loss for me is that I lost the person I would report to. As Pappy would always say, 'Okay, keep me posted.' I always wanted to make him proud." Adam says, He'll always remember the Horatio Alger Awards, trips to Seattle, Hawaii, Morocco, Israel, and Jordan. Jason says, he gave me the advice to find something you're good at and get better at it. Ryan says, when I was little, Pappy used to teach me how to play cards, and when he could tell I wasn't paying attention, would remorselessly win the game to prove his point. After all these years, I understand the essence of his lessons, that one must be vigilant and prudent in the hardest game of all, which is life. Tara says, Pappy showed and taught me to give to others. He always told me to be the best version of myself, while always letting me know how much I am loved. Bradley says, I'm so lucky to live in Florida too, where I could see Pappy frequently. He came to my soccer games as often as he could, and I will always look up to the man he was. Chase says, he taught me that knowledge was key and that I should want and love to learn. Even when I was in elementary school, he would test me on current events, country capitals, etc. And of course, his favorite subject, the stock market. Caroline says, Pappy always encouraged me to pursue my interests, whether it was playing golf or applying to my dream college. He was the ultimate support system, and to have him on your team was invaluable. And last, Kevin says, one word, pancakes. He made the best pancakes. Everyone who knew Pappy knows what a stellar businessman he was. But above business, he was a true philanthropist in every sense of the word. Throughout his career, he received numerous business and industry awards for his leadership, business acumen, and generosity. Pappy always said he admired my business work ethic, which in turn made me want to work even harder. One summer in college, I lived in New York and interned for a big fashion company. On a particular Thursday, I was feeling overwhelmed and a little homesick when Pappy happened to call me from Chicago. He asked if I was free for dinner on Friday, the following night. Without even being asked, Pappy flew to New York for one night just to take me to dinner. I will never forget that night walking into the lobby of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Seeing him waiting for me at the top of the stairs. And the feeling of security and comfort I had when I saw him. We had the best table in the legendary Four Seasons restaurant that night, and I will forever think of this as one of the nicest things anyone has ever done for me. Pappy knew how to make his family feel loved always. I lived in Chicago for 4 years in my early 20s, and Pappy and I went to dinner every Tuesday night, met for lunch often during the week, and I frequented their apartment on Lakeshore Drive. At one point, I realized we were seeing each other so much that I thought to myself, wow, I really need to start hanging out more with people my own age instead of these senior citizens. But I loved spending time with Pappy. We all knew that when Manny called, you had to answer, or when he wanted to meet, you had to show up. The memories of Pappy are endless. At every restaurant, he always would order apple strudel for dessert. You really can take the boy out of Germany, but you can't take Germany out of the boy. There wasn't a restaurant we ate at that he didn't squat down and turn a chair upside down to see who the manufacturer of the chair was. So often was the chair Shelby Williams that when it was, he would simply nod and say, yeah, it's ours. I worked one summer at the Merchandise Mart, and when Pappy came to visit, I swear the entire building rolled out the red carpet for him. He was a celebrity. I once introduced Pappy to a boyfriend, and after the introductory nice to meet yous were exchanged, Pappy immediately asked what my boyfriend thought about the current stock market climate. Let's just say the boyfriend didn't last very long. Pappy had an eye for style and art, and he always loved my outfit choices. He used to dress immaculately in a custom suit with MS embroidered on every dress shirt, cufflinks, the same shoes he wore for 40 years, and that Piaget watch that some of you may remember was always borderline cutting off his circulation. He always asked me how many hours I had to work to be able to afford whatever I was wearing, a game he knew I hated playing. If you've ever gotten a serious, no-nonsense, intimidating German man to belly laugh, then you know how satisfying it is. I'm happy I got the chance to do that on numerous occasions throughout the years. Above all of his business accomplishments, Papi was an amazing family man. He looked at my grandma like she was the prettiest girl in the world for each day of the 70 years they were married. A few years ago, when his health started to deteriorate, he wrote me a letter. In it, he said, "I'm grateful to have had the unwavering love and support of the wonderful woman who is your grandmother all these years. Without her by my side, it would have been nearly impossible for me to follow my dreams." I used to joke that how lucky were they to be married for 70 years when I have a hard time finding a boyfriend I like for more than 70 minutes. When my brother Danny died, he was proactive in helping our family keep his memory alive. I remember he always loved Danny and vice versa. It makes me smile knowing the two of them are together now in heaven. When I reflect on the fact that this man is my grandfather, it's hard to believe. He was bigger than life. I can't get through a conversation with my dad without him mentioning Papi, his biggest mentor. He loved my dad like he was his own son. I'm so incredibly lucky that I got to spend 30 years with him. He believed in me and gave me confidence, and I'm sure he made everyone in this room feel special at some point too. He was a living legend, an inspiration to us all, and I'll always cherish him, his memory, and my time with him. Love you and miss you, Papi.
Thank you very much. It's now an honor to invite up Steve Nassiter to share some words.
I want to begin by thanking Fern and Michael, Paul, and Jill for inviting me to share remarks today. I first met Manny in the 70s, and it has been my privilege to have Manny Steinfeld as a friend for all these years. Like all of you, I loved Manny. And it is a special honor to be able to give expression to my long friendship with a truly great man. Manny was one of the last of the greatest generation. Even within that generation, he was great and utterly unique. He was a true original, and there simply will never be another like him, ever. He was the best of the best. Picking up on Jill, Paul, and Michael's remarks, Manny's story simultaneously personified the American dream and embodied the Jewish experience of the 20th century. He was a refugee from Nazi Germany who persevered and prospered in America, a U.S. war hero, a titan of business, and a major philanthropist, all in one lifetime. Now, many Jewish refugees from Nazi Germany built new lives in America. There were a number of war heroes during World War II. There have been quite a few titans of industry in this great nation of ours, and our Jewish community is fortunate to have a considerable share of big-hearted philanthropists. Manny Steinfeld was the only man any of us have ever known who was all of those things. As we heard, and many of us knew, Manny arrived in Chicago in 1938 with $10 pinned into his pants pockets. He slept on his aunt and uncle's bedroom in Hyde Park. Our beneficiary agency, Hias, paid for Manny's transportation from Germany to Chicago, and our federation provided $25 a month to assist with Manny's care until he was 18. Manny always credited the JUF Federation with saving his life and actually kept the receipts of the $1,200 our agencies invested in him from 1938 to 1942. He liked to say that he felt it was proper to pay the community back, but with a little interest. Then he'd get that twinkle in his eye and calculate how much interest totaled to date. Manny was a mathematical genius whose mind was as accurate as a computer. At last count, he has paid back the Chicago Jewish community thousands and thousands of times over. As you heard, Manny, of course, was an American war hero. He participated in 5 campaigns with the renowned 82nd Airborne Division, for which he received a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. Frankly, when I chatted with him about that, he blanched a little for being called a hero for doing what he thought was his duty. And he used to laugh at how he volunteered to be a paratrooper, saying, when you are 20 years old, what could be more joyous, those were his words, than to jump out of a plane on behalf of your country? And then he would add with that same twinkle in his eye, the only thing was they didn't tell us they would be shooting at us when we jumped and when we landed. As you heard, he also made history when he personally assisted in translating Germany's unconditional surrender to the 82nd Airborne. Manny was 21 years old. When he shared these stories, he'd shrug and say it was his privilege to play a small part in bringing about the end of the war. Manny's joy at the end of the war was tempered by personal loss. His father had died when he was 5. His mother and sister both died in the Stutthof concentration camp. And as you know, his younger brother was killed by British troops in Palestine. Instead of asking, why me? Manny asks, what's my mitzvah? What can I do next? Since he was the one who survived, he was determined to live in a way that honored the members of his family who did not. And partnering with Fern, truly the love of his life, he did that with a whole heart. After graduating from Roosevelt and serving his country, and then once again as an intelligence officer in the Korean War, Manny and a business associate purchased a bankrupt Chicago chair company, changed its name to Shelby Williams Industry, and the rest is history. Manny told me that he kept his business philosophy simple. First, provide quality that is second to none. Second, always strive to be better. Not better than your competitors, but better than yourself. Manny was never satisfied with anything less than excellence, particularly from himself and also from his community. Manny believed the GI Bill represented America at its greatest, and he believed that the Jewish Federation represented the Jewish community at its greatest. Manny made his first gift to the JUF annual campaign in 1959, and his and Fern's philanthropy quickly snowballed. He became a member of the Prime Minister's Associates, which is the name that he gave to those donors whose annual contribution was $100,000 and over, a name for a giving society that we continue to use to this day. Manny, as you also heard, had the unique distinction of chairing the JUF annual campaign twice, in 1987 and again in 97. Each time he achieved what was then record totals. The 87 campaign raised $47 million, $3 million more than the year before, and a decade later, the 97 campaign raised $59.1 million, again an increase of $3 million. No one else has ever chaired the campaign twice before or ever since. Manny never forgot where he came from on more than one level. It was German Jews that were the original Ashkenazim, that created Ashkenazic culture and identity. One of the greatest Ashkenazi accomplishments was community organization, Kehila. The Ashkenazim made Jewish living a portable culture that took that sense of community with it wherever it went. Manny was a true son of this 1,000-year-old culture, a man of Kehila who took community with him wherever he went and became one of its greatest leaders. He led by example, and his enthusiasm was contagious. The late Barbara Hochberg, Zichrona Livracha, who was chairman of the board at the time Manny chaired the 97 campaign, said it best, "Follow me, that's Manny. He is the driving force behind all of us." Manny went on to serve the Federation as its chairman in 98 and 2000, and the two of us were a good team. He was a terrific partner and an inspirational leader, and it seemed fitting that such a singular man began his chairmanship as our community celebrated Israel's 50th year jubilee, and then it ended during the Federation's centennial. During those years with Manny at the helm, we launched the Jewish Day School Guarantee Trust, opened the JUF Uptown campaign, broke ground on the Diane and Eli Field Ezra Multi-Service Center. We dedicated the Fiedler Hillel and the Elaine Kirsten Children's Center. We also began the Centennial Campaign, which went on to total more than $1.2 billion. During the time of Manny's chairmanship, we traveled a lot together within the country and to Israel and other places, and you heard, and many of you experienced the turning of the chair, as in fact did I. Some people travel with publications and cameras and sunscreen. Manny almost always had a Shelby Williams product book and some order forms. At his peak, he was also a sincere, soft-spoken, relentless solicitor for JUF and the Jewish people worldwide. I saw him talk to people about JUF everywhere, in an elevator, in a parking lot. Manny felt he had a responsibility to fulfill. Manny's penchant for successful business ideas carried over to his JUF leadership beyond his chairmanship. About 21 years ago, he spoke to Jeffrey Cohn and to me about an idea he had. He noticed that the number of Jews going to sunny spots for the winter was on the rise, and he thought it was a good idea for JUF to have snowbird meetings, not to raise money at the event, but rather to be the convener for Chicago Jews in the area and to remind people of their commitments to their home community. Fern and Manny opened their home for the first of these events in 1999. I remember we invited people from as far away as Aventura all the way up further north to Palm Beach, and a huge number came to your house. Thank God the house was big enough to hold a huge number. And then after that, we began to hold separate meetings in all the different Florida, Arizona, and California communities. That 20-year snowboard program was a huge success. 38% of all the gifts, of all the dollars contributed to JUF come from people who in fact live in snowbird communities. All the events are sponsored by volunteer leaders, and Fern and Manny sponsored that event 4 times. And this past winter, it was indeed a privilege and honor to sit with Manny and chat with him about it, and he was so proud, Fern, of the beautiful speech you made that night. Manny, who was the recipient of the Julius Rosenwald Memorial Award, also believed that people should feel good about giving away their money. I think one of the projects that made him feel very good was the Manfred Steinfeld Scholarship Fund for summer experiences in Israel. That scholarship provided free trips to Israel for hundreds of young Chicago young adults, giving them the opportunity to travel to Israel and to fall in love with the homeland that his brother gave his life for. Manny once told me that he liked to think that each of these young people had become Naphtali's ambassador, living a proud and meaningful Jewish life that honors his memory. Manny believed that in this way, from tragedy comes triumph. At least he found that to be true in his own life, and believed it to be true for the Jewish people. Notwithstanding all the challenges, Israel, anti-Semitism, Jewish assimilation, Manny was an eternal optimist. And not a day went by when he didn't share his good fortune with others. Manny told me many times, and I'm quoting, or as close as I can to quote, being charitable never depleted anyone's assets. Ask any philanthropist and he'll tell you, the more you give away, the more it seems they come back to you. The only money we're going to take with us is what we've given away, for that is what we'll be remembered by. Incredible words to live by, but in truth, Manny will be remembered for many other things in addition to his philanthropy. He was a man of big ideas, a man who inspired others, and a man with a generosity of spirit that was unmatched. To be in his company and to enjoy his respect and friendship was one of the greatest honors of my life. May the memories we all have of this great American Jewish leader serve as an everlasting blessing for all of us who knew and loved him.
We turn to the traditional prayers for mourning. I invite you to rise for El Malei Rachamim. In Hebrew, El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Hamtzeh Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei Hashchina Ba'amalot Kedoshim V'Tohorim Kezohar Rakia Mazhirim Et Nishmato Yakirehu Shehalach La'olamo Baal harachamim vayitztirehu beseter kanafav leolamim vayitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato vayanuach b'shalom et mishkavo v'nomar Amen. We join together in English. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, Grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of night's presence, among the holy and pure who shine before us in the firmament of the soul of Lord Manfred Steinfeld, who has gone into eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound in the bonds of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. We join together in words of Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit gadash shemei rabbah, b'mal divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yom echon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei olmaya, yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit raman v'yit naseh, V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei d'kudisha brechu. Ve'la min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, dam biran bi'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom ben romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all who are bereaved. And together we say, Amen. Please be seated. I invite up members of the 82nd Airborne for an airborne farewell.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Mueller. I'm the chairman of the Chicago chapter of the 82nd Airborne Division Association. Joining me today are members of our chapter representing our airborne family. We're here today to pay our respects and say farewell to our friend and comrade, Manfred Steinfeld. Our program will last about 10 minutes. It will include a few relevant readings and recognitions, military honors to follow. We sincerely thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to start with a favorite airborne poem called Airborne All the Way. These men of silver wings, troopers from the sky above, in whom devotion springs, what spirit so unites them in brotherhood, they say, their answer loud and clear, airborne all the way. These men of danger, in open door they stand, with static lines above them and ripcord in their hand. While earthbound they are falling, a silent prayer they say, Lord be with us forever, airborne all the way. One day they'll make their final jump. St. Mike will tap them out. The good Lord will be waiting. He knows what they're about. And answering in cadence, he'll hear the trooper say, we're glad to be aboard, sir. Airborne all the way. Glenn.
Today we honor the memory of our airborne comrade, Manfred Steinfeld. Manny was born in Yasbach, Germany on 29 April 1924, immigrated to the United States in 1938. He answered the call and enlisted in the United States Army on 3 March 1943 in Chicago. Trained in military intelligence, recruited to a select group,
As friends and as part of his airborne family, we're here today to pay our final respects to Manfred, with whom we are bound by ties of patriotism, loyalty, and sacrifice. We honor him today for his service to our great nation and for his commitment to the ways and ideals of the airborne soldier. In earning the parachutist badge and serving with an airborne unit, Manny demonstrated a level of commitment and courage that is a great example for all Americans. We are certain that St. Michael, the patron of the airborne, has shown him the way to heaven's gate, and we pray that he may now rest in peace, knowing well that the freedom he defended is safe and secure. As a symbol of our everlasting airborne brotherhood, we affix upon his casket the emblem of America's Guard of Honor and the 82nd Airborne Division Association.
Paratrooper's Prayer. Heavenly Father, hear my call. For through the sky I will soon fall. Stand up, hook up, shuffle to the door. I pray for your will, nothing less, nothing more. 1,000, 2,000, 3,004. My canopy fill before I count anymore. Give me courage in the midst of my fear to enjoy your world's beauty from way up here. From jumpers and obstacles, float me clear, and safely to the drop zone, help me steer. Feet and knees together, preparing myself to land, never more aware that I'm secure within your hand. Guide and help me as I quickly get to my feet to conquer every obstacle till the mission is complete. In God's name, I shall forever pray, because I'm airborne all the way.
Chicago chapter members, let's now pay our final respects and offer Manny one final salute. Chapter, attention. Face the casket. Present arms. Order arms. Farewell, Manny. May you have fair winds and soft landings, airborne all the way. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our airborne farewell. Thank you for allowing us the honor of seeing off our fellow trooper.
As we render honors, we ask everyone to please rise and place your right hand over your hearts. And for those who are veterans, we ask you to join us in our final salute. Present arms.
Ladies and gentlemen, we thank representatives from the United States Armed Forces for being here. The interment service will continue at Shalom Memorial Park Cemetery, located at 1700 West Rand Road in Arlington Heights. Shiva will continue at the residence of Jill and Tim Kniff at 906 Dean Avenue in Highland Park. We'll be together today following the interment till 9, then tomorrow from 2 p.m. Valet parking is available. Memorial contributions in his memory to the Jewish United Fund for the Dandy Kniff Leukemia Research Laboratory at Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. That information is also on the service folder. If you did not get one, we have them as you exit the chapel. For those of you who will be driving in the funeral procession to the cemetery, the procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing many of the cars with a flag that will be affixed to the top portion of your car. We'll have a car in the back of the funeral procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. And for your own personal safety, I strongly recommend using a horn liberally as you're going through the intersections. And please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to the cemetery. Also, I rarely make personal comments at people's funerals, but I do have to share this one quick story. When we got together many years ago with Mrs. Steinfeld, and Manny wanted everything done very specifically, even to the point of some of these pictures. I believe in branding, and I have my own company tie. And Manny, in his very respectful way, said, David Jacobson, you will not be wearing your tie. You will be wearing the Shelby Williams tie. Manny, we followed your instructions, though the staff has theirs. At this time, I call upon those of you who have been asked to serve as pallbearers to please come forward as we escort the casket of Manfred Steinfeld, along with Rabbi Zinn, and anyone who has served in the United States Armed Forces as honorary pallbearers, also please come forward. But for the family members that have been asked, please come forward. Please rise. Grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, you can exit through these doors or the ones up front.